October 22nd, 1850. Dear Bones, I am myself again, although weak, after 36 hours of unconsciousness. Myself again. What a grim and bitter joke. I shall never be myself again, never. I have come face to face with an insanity and a horror beyond the limits of human expression. And the end is not yet. If it were not for Cal, I believe I should end my life this minute. He is the one island of sanity in all this madness. You shall know it all. We had equipped ourselves with candles for our cellar exploration, and they threw a strong glow that was quite adequate. Hellishly adequate. Calvin tried to dissuade me, citing my recent illness, saying that the most we should probably find would be some healthy rats to mark for poisoning. I remained determined, however. Calvin fetched a sigh and answered, "Have it as you must, then, Mr. Boone." The entrance to the cellar is by means of a trap in the kitchen floor, which Cal assures me he has since stoutly boarded over, and we raised it only with a great deal of straining and lifting. A fetid, overpowering smell came up out of the darkness, not unlike that which pervaded the deserted town across the Royal River. The candle I held shed its glow on a steeply slanting flight of stairs leading down into darkness. They were in a terrible state of repair. In one place, an entire riser missing, leaving only a black hole. And it was easy enough to see how the unfortunate Marcella might have come to her end there. "Be careful, Mr. Boone," Cal said. I told him I had no intention of being anything but, and we made our descent. The floor was earthen, the walls of stout granite, and hardly wet. The place did not look like a rat haven at all, for there were none of the things rats like to make their nests in, such as old boxes, discarded furniture, piles of paper, and the like. We lifted our candles, gaining a small circle of light, but still able to see little. The floor had a gradual slope which seemed to run beneath the main living room and the dining room, i.e., to the west. It was in this direction we walked. All was in utter silence. The stench in the air grew steadily stronger, and the dark about us seemed to press like wool, as if jealous of the light which had temporarily deposed it after so many years of undisputed dominion. At the far end, the granite walls gave way to a polished wood which seemed totally black and without reflective properties. Here the cellar ended, leaving what seemed to be an alcove off the main chamber. It was positioned at an angle which made inspection impossible without stepping around the corner. Calvin and I did so. It was as if a rotten spectre of this dwelling's sinister past had risen before us. A single chair stood in this alcove, and above it, fastened from a hook in one of the stout overhead beams, was a decayed noose of hemp. "And it was here that he hung himself," Cal muttered. "God!" "Yes, with the corpse of his daughter lying at the foot of the stairs behind him." Cal began to speak. Then I saw his eyes jerk to a spot behind me. Then his words became a scream. How, Bones, can I describe the sight which fell upon our eyes? How can I tell you of the hideous tenants within our walls? The far wall swung back, and from that darkness a face leered, a face with eyes as ebon as the Styx itself. Its mouth yawned in a toothless, agonized grin. One yellow, rotted hand stretched itself out to us. It made a hideous mewling sound and took a shambling step forward. The light from my candle fell upon it, and I saw the livid rope burn about its neck. And from beyond it, something else moved, something I shall dream of until the day when all dreams cease. A girl with a pallid mouldering face and a corpse grin. A girl whose head lolled at a lunatic angle. They wanted us. I know it. And I know they would have drawn us into the darkness and made us their own, had I not thrown my candle directly at the thing in the partition and followed it with the chair beneath the noose. After that, all is confused darkness. My mind has drawn the curtain. I awoke, as I have said, in my room, with Cal at my side. If I could leave, I should fly from this house of horror with my nightdress flapping at my heels. But I cannot. I have become a pawn in a deeper, darker drama. Do not ask how I know. I only do. Mrs. Cloris was right when she spoke of blood calling to blood, and how horribly right when she spoke of those who watch and those who guard. I fear that I have wakened a force which has slept in the tenebrous village of Salem's Lot for half a century. A force which has slain my ancestors and taken them in unholy bondage as Nosferatu, the undead. But I have greater fears than these, Bones, but I still see only in part. If I knew, if I only knew all. Charles. Postscriptum. And of course I write this only for myself. We are isolated from preachers' corners. I daren't carry my taint there to post this, and Calvin will not leave me. Perhaps, if God is good, this will reach you in some manner. From the Pocket Journal of Calvin McCann. October 23rd, 1850. He is stronger today. We talked briefly of the apparitions in the cellar, agreed they were neither hallucinations or of an ectoplasmic origin, but real. Does Mr. Boone suspect, as I do, that they have gone? Perhaps. The noises are still, yet all is ominous, yet o'ercast with a dark pall. It seems we wait in the deceptive eye of the storm. Have found a packet of papers in an upstairs bedroom lying in the bottom drawer of an old roll-top desk. Some correspondence and receipted bills lead me to believe the room was Robert Boone's. Yet the most interesting document is a few jottings on the back of an advertisement for gentlemen's beaver hats. At the top is writ, "Blessed are the meek." Below, the following apparent nonsense is writ, "Bakej derm statsik, elm soerare shamded." I believe 'tis the key of the locked and coded book in the library. The cipher above is certainly a rustic one, used in the War of Independence, known as the fence rail. When one removes the nulls from the second bit of scribble, the following is obtained. First line, Bezdertik. Second line, Leze Aheme. Read up and down rather than across, the result is the original quotation from the Beatitudes. Blessed are the meek. Before I dare show this to Mr. Boone, I must be sure of the book's contents. October 24th, 1850. Dear Bones, an amazing occurrence. Cal, always closed-mouthed until absolutely sure of himself, a rare and admirable human trait, has found the diary of my grandfather Robert. The document was in a code which Cal himself has broken. He modestly declares that the discovery was an accident, but I suspect that perseverance and hard work had rather more to do with it. At any rate, what a somber light it sheds on our mysteries here. The first entry is dated June 1st, 1789. The last, October 27, 1789, 4 days before the cataclysmic disappearance of which Mrs. Cloris spoke. It tells a tale of deepening obsession, nay, of madness, and makes hideously clear the relationship between great-uncle Philip, the town of Jerusalem's lot, and the book which rests in that desecrated church. The town itself, according to Robert Boone, predates Chapelwaite, built in 1782, and Preacher's Corners, known in those days as Preacher's Rest, and founded in 1741. It was founded by a splinter group of the Puritan faith in 1710, a sect headed by a dour religious fanatic named James Boone. What a start that name gave me. That this Boone bore relation to my family can hardly be doubted, I believe. Mrs. Cloris could not have been more right in her superstitious belief that familial bloodlines is of crucial importance in this matter. And I recall with terror her answer to my question about Philip and his relationship to Salem's lot. "Blood relation," said she, and I fear that it is so. The town became a settled community built around the church where Boone preached, or held court. My grandfather intimates that he also held commerce with any number of ladies from the town, assuring them that this was God's way and will. As a result, the town became an anomaly, which could only have existed in those isolated and queer days when belief in witches and the virgin birth existed hand in hand. An interbred, rather degenerate religious village controlled by a half-mad preacher whose twin gospels were the Bible and de Gouge's sinister demon dwellings. A community in which rites of exorcism were held regularly. A community of incest and the insanity and physical defects which so often accompany that sin. I suspect, and believe Robert Boone must have also, that one of Boone's bastard offspring must have left or have been spirited away from Jerusalem's lot to seek his fortune to the south, and thus founded our present lineage. I do know by my own family reckoning that our clan supposedly originated in that part of Massachusetts which has so lately become this sovereign state of Maine. My great-grandfather, Kenneth Boone, became a rich man as a result of the then flourishing fur trade. It was his money, increased by time and wise investment, which built this ancestral home long after his death in 1763. His sons, Philip and Robert, built Chapelwaite. "Blood calls to blood," Mrs. Cloris said. Could it be that Kenneth was born of James Boone, fled the madness of his father and his father's town, only to have his sons, all unknowing, build the Boone home not 2 miles from the Boone beginnings? If 'tis true, does it not seem that some huge and invisible hand has guided us? According to Robert's diary, James Boone was ancient in 1789, and he must have been. Granting him an age of 25 in the year of the town's founding, he would have been 104, a prodigious age. The following is quoted direct from Robert Boone's diary. August 4th, 1789. Today, for the first time, I met this man with whom my brother has been so unhealthily taken. I must admit this Boone controls a strange magnetism which upset me greatly. He is a veritable ancient, white-bearded, and dresses in a black cassock which struck me as somehow obscene. More disturbing yet was the fact that he was surrounded by women, as a sultan would be surrounded by his harem. And P assures me he is active yet, although at least an octogenarian. The village itself I had visited only once before, and will not visit again. Its streets are silent and filled with the fear the old man inspires from his pulpit. I fear also that like has mated with like, as so many of the faces are similar. It seems that each way I turn I beheld the old man's visage. All are so wan. They seem lackluster, as if sucked dry of all vitality. I beheld eyeless and noseless children, women who wept and gibbered and pointed at the sky for no reason, and garbled talk from the scriptures with talk of demons. P. wished me to stay for services, but the thought of that sinister ancient in the pulpit before an audience of this town's interbred populace repulsed me, and I made an excuse. The entries preceding and following this tell of Philip's growing fascination with James Boone. On September 1st, 1789, Philip was baptized into Boone's church. His brother says, "I am aghast with amaze and horror. My brother has changed before my very eyes. He even seems to grow to resemble the wretched man." First mention of the book occurs on July 23rd. Robert's diary records it only briefly. P. returned from the smaller village tonight with, I thought, a rather wild visage. Would not speak until bedtime, when he said that Boone had inquired after a book titled Mysteries of the Worm. To please P., I promised to write Johnson Goodfellow a letter of inquiry. P. almost fawningly grateful. On August 12th, this notation. Received 2 letters in the post today, one from Johnson Goodfellow in Boston. They have note of the tome in which P. has expressed an interest. Only 5 copies extant in this country. The letter is rather cool. Odd, indeed. Have known Henry Goodfellow for years. August 13th. P., insanely excited by Goodfellow's letter, refuses to say why. He would only say that Boone is exceedingly anxious to obtain a copy. Cannot think why, since by the title it seems only a harmless gardening treatise. Am worried for Philip. He grows stranger to me, daily. I wish now we had not returned to Chapelwaite. The summer is hot, oppressive, and filled with omens. There are only 2 further mentions of the infamous book in Robert's diary. He seems not to have realized the true importance of it, even at the end. From the entry of September 4th. I have petitioned Goodfellow to act as P.'s agent in the matter of the purchase, although my better judgment cries against it. What use to demur? Has he not his own money? Should I refuse? And in return I have extracted a promise from Philip to recant this noisome baptism. Yet he is so hectic, nearly feverish. I do not trust him. I am hopelessly at sea in this matter. Finally, September 16th. The book arrived today with a note from Goodfellow saying he wishes no more of my trade. P. was excited to an unnatural degree, all but snatched the book from my hands. It is written in bastard Latin and a runic script of which I can read nothing. The thing seemed almost warm to the touch and to vibrate in my hands as if it contained a huge power. I reminded P. of his promise to recant, and he only laughed in an ugly, crazed fashion and waved that book in my face, crying over and over again, "We have it, we have it. The worm, the secret of the worm." He is now fled, I suppose, to his mad benefactor, and I have not seen him more this day. Of the book there is no more, but I have made certain deductions which seem at least probable. First, that this book was, as Mrs. Cloris has said, the subject of the falling out between Robert and Philip. Second, that it is a repository of unholy incantation, possibly of Druidic origin. Many of the Druidic blood rituals were preserved in print by the Roman conquerors of Britain in the name of scholarship, and many of these infernal cookbooks are among the world's forbidden literature. Third, that Boone and Philip intended to use the book for their own ends. Perhaps in some twisted way they intended good, but I do not believe it. I believe they had long before bound themselves over to whatever faceless powers exist beyond the rim of the universe, powers which may exist beyond the very fabric of time. The last entries of Robert Boone's diary lend a dim glow of approbation to these speculations, and I allow them to speak for themselves. October 26, 1789. A terrific babble in Preacher's Corners today. Frawley, the blacksmith, seized my arm and demanded to know what your brother and that mad Antichrist are into up there. Goody Randall claims there have been signs in the sky of great impending disaster. A cow has been born with 2 heads. As for myself, I know not what impends. Perhaps 'tis my brother's insanity. His hair has gone gray almost overnight. His eyes are great bloodshot circles from which the pleasing light of sanity seems to have departed. He grins and whispers, and for some reason of his own has begun to haunt our cellar when not in Jerusalem's lot. The whippoorwills congregate about the house and upon the grass. Their combined calling from the mist blends with the sea into an unearthly shriek that precludes all thoughts of sleep. October 27, 1789. Followed P. this evening when he departed for Jerusalem's lot, keeping a safe distance to avoid discovery. The cursed whippoorwills flocked through the woods, filling all with a deathly psychopompotic chant. I dared not cross the bridge, the town all dark except for the church, which was litten with a ghastly red glare that seemed to transform the high peaked windows into the eyes of the inferno. Voices rose and fell in a devil's litany, sometimes laughing, sometimes sobbing. The very ground seemed to swell and groan beneath me, as if it bore an awful weight, and I fled, amazed and full of terror, the hellish screaming cries of the whippoorwills dinning in my ears as I ran through those shadow-riven woods. All tends to the climax, yet unforeseen. I dare not sleep for the dreams that come, yet not remain awake for what lunatic terrors may come. The night is full of awful sounds, and I fear. And yet I feel the urge to go again, to watch, to see. It seems that Philip himself calls me, and the old man. The birds. Cursed, cursed, cursed. Here the diary of Robert Boone ends. Yet you must notice, Bones, near the conclusion, that he claims Philip himself seemed to call him. My final conclusion is formed by these lines, by the talk of Mrs. Cloris and the others, but most of all, by those terrifying figures in the cellar, dead, yet alive. Our line is yet an unfortunate one, Bones. There is a curse over us which refuses to be buried. It lives a hideous shadow life in this house and that town, and the culmination of the cycle is drawing close again. I am the last of the Boone blood. I fear that something knows this, and that I am at the nexus of an evil endeavor beyond all sane understanding. The anniversary is All Saints' Eve, 1 week from today. How shall I proceed? If only you were here to counsel me, to help me. If only you were here. I must know all. I must return to the shunned town. May God support me. Charles. From the Pocket Journal of Calvin McCann. October 25th, 1850. Mr. Boone has slept nearly all this day. His face is pallid and much thinner. I fear recurrence of his fever is inevitable. While refreshing his water carafe, I caught sight of 2 unmailed letters to Mr. Granson in Florida. He plans to return to Jerusalem's lot. 'Twill be the killing of him if I allow it. Dare I steal away to Preacher's Corners and hire a buggy? I must. And yet what if he wakes? If I should return and find him gone? The noises have begun in our walls again. Thank God he still sleeps. My mind shudders from the import of this. Later. I brought him his dinner on a tray. He plans on rising later, and despite his evasions, I know what he plans. Yet I go to Preacher's Corners. Several of the sleeping powders prescribed to him during his late illness remained with my things. He drank one with his tea, all unknowing. He sleeps again. To leave him with the things that shamble behind our walls terrifies me. To let him continue even one more day within these walls terrifies me even more greatly. I have locked him in. God grant he should still be there, safe and sleeping, when I return with the buggy. Still later. Stoned me! Stoned me! Like a wild and rabid dog! Monsters and fiends! These that call themselves men! We are prisoners here. The birds, the whippoorwills, have begun to gather. October 26, 1850. Dear Bones, it is nearly dusk, and I have just wakened, having slept nearly the last 24 hours away. Although Cal has said nothing, I suspect he put a sleeping powder in my tea, having gleaned my intentions. He is a good and faithful friend, intending only the best, and I shall say nothing. Yet my mind is set. Tomorrow is the day. I am calm, resolved, but also seem to feel the subtle onset of the fever again. If it is so, it must be tomorrow. Perhaps tonight would be better still. Yet not even the fires of hell itself could induce me to set foot in that village by shadowlight. Should I write no more, may God bless and keep you, Bones. Charles. Postscriptum. The birds have set up their cry, and the horrible shuffling sounds have begun again. Cal does not think I hear, but I do. From the Pocket Journal of Calvin McCann. October 27, 1850, 5 a.m. He is impersuadable. Very well. I go with him.